What's going on, guys? Farzin Vasugan here with you on a Monday night. Appreciate you guys joining me a little later than usual. Of course, didn't want to have the podcast overlap with the Super Bowl opening night. I love watching the Super Bowl opening night. We'll talk about Super Bowl opening night, media night, whatever you want to call it. Some of the key reactions and some of the highlights from that. Roger Goodell did a press conference today, his annual Super Bowl press conference. Maybe he does one or two more this week. I don't know. Probably not. It's usually just one. Was kind of surprised it was earlier in the week. It's usually later in the week, but did one today on a Monday. And yeah, he was asked about the refs. Imagine that. Had some interesting comments there, so we'll get into that. Then, now it's Super Bowl week. We are 6 days away. What must the Chiefs do offensively and defensively and on special teams? We'll get into that as well. Want to let you know, tomorrow night, there will also be another podcast. Don't miss that out. We will have a special guest on that one there. So a lot of things to look forward to on the Chiefs Zone podcast this week. We might be doing a podcast every single night. Who knows? That's just the way we roll here on the Chiefs Zone podcast. So anything goes on Super Bowl Media Week, or Super Bowl Week rather, not Media Week. Media Night is tonight, but a lot of things going on here. And a lot of things to get into tonight. Want to let you all know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs, whether it's the NFL, college basketball, Major League Baseball. Got my Royals opening day tickets. A lot of events you can get from SeatGeek. That's where I go for my sports ticketing needs. And you can use my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. So go to SeatGeek.com. Pick your tickets, and at checkout, new customers can put in my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off their first order from SeatGeek. Hope you guys are doing well. Appreciate you guys joining me tonight live on a Monday night. So for all of you on YouTube and Facebook, appreciate you guys taking some time to join us here live tonight. And for everyone listening later on, thank you to all of you as well. It is a pleasure to be back on board with you once again. Got a lot of things to discuss here. Let's start with the Super Bowl media night. In my opinion, such a cool event. I've always enjoyed watching and listening to Super Bowl media night. I had it on my TV, and they don't show all of the interviews that are going on. So I was switching between that and Sirius XM NFL Radio because they do a lot of their own interviews as well. Because you have the key players like Mahomes, Kelsey, Jones, Andy Reid. A couple other key guys, Nick Bolton, they have their own podium. And the media, they're free to go up to whoever they want to and ask questions within the allotted time. And I believe it's about 30 minutes long. And then there are a bunch of other Chiefs players that are walking around, and the media is free to walk up to them and ask them whatever they want. Listen, Super Bowl media night, and the entire week is like this, but the media night itself, you have Guillermo from Jimmy Kimmel Live, who is a staple at these events here. Obviously, his interactions with LeBron have always been fun to listen to. It's really not an event that's supposed to be taken too seriously. So, for instance, if you're a beat writer for the Kansas City Star, or if you cover the NFL for USA Today, I mean, yeah, they go there and they have their fun and ask whatever questions they need to ask. But this is not really the night to be super journalistic, if you will. You have some celebrities. I remember in the early 2000s, I think in the actually exactly the year 2000 or maybe 01, because the show Survivor, the very first season was on 2000. And obviously, the first few seasons, the contestants were treated like rock stars. I mean, they truly were celebrities. And I remember Jervis Peterson, who's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. I think he was like 5th place or 6th place in the very first season. He was actually picked by CBS, which is the network that airs Survivor. He was picked to be a celebrity guest interviewer, a celebrity guest journalist. So you see a lot of these people. I remember AJ McCarron, the quarterback for, I think, Alabama or Georgia. I can't remember which one. I think it was Bama. And they showed his girlfriend, who eventually he married, Kathy Webb. And I can't remember the name of the announcer who is a boomer in like his 70s. He went nuts because of how hot she is and was like, oh, you quarterbacks get all the women. And she gained so much fame from that. Like her followers went up overnight during the national championship game. She became a celebrity guest interviewer at one of the Super Bowl media days a couple of weeks later because she got pointed out by Musburger, I think. Yeah, that's who it was. So that's really what Super Bowl media night is really all about. It's just, have some fun. You have like these Samoan dancers who go up to players and they're like, hey, we challenge you to dance just like us, and they have fun with it. I remember Pringle had that a couple of years ago. So it's really that type of night. And then obviously Travis Kelce probably fielding a lot of Taylor Swift questions. I heard a couple of them that he answered tonight. I'm sure he'll get more as the week goes on, because that's just the way Super Bowl media night and the whole week really works. I still think it's cool. I love when the players enter the way they do. I thought it was kind of interesting today where they had a high school marching band kind of help introduce them and perform as they're coming out. Usually it's like, like a majestic, uplifting instrumental track that they come out to. So this was a little different. It's kind of like the Olympics when, they come out by country. That's kind of what it feels like for media night. So I've always been that guy that watches Super Bowl media night. I'm like, man, when are the Chiefs going to have this? And the Chiefs have had it 5 times now. Obviously, one of them was a digital version because of COVID a few years ago. But man, they've done this so many times. And listen, Patrick Mahomes said it today in his press conference on media night. He said, look, he always liked to take in the moment because you never know when it could be your last. He's absolutely right. I still remember watching Super Bowl 54 with the first Super Bowl in the Mahomes era with the Chiefs. And I said, man, this could be the only Chiefs Super Bowl we witness. And we're about to witness the 5th Super Bowl with this core group. Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelce, Jones, Butker. It truly has been one hell of a ride with this football team. Obviously, and I see some of you guys talking about it in the comments here. Ricardo, saying a three-peat would be enormous. Absolutely would be. It's never happened before in the NFL. The last professional sports team in the United States to pull off a three-peat, the LA Lakers in the early 2000s, from 2000 to 2002. And I saw Rich Eisen talk about it earlier today, where if Mahomes gets the Super Bowl MVP, he'll be the first athlete to have a championship MVP in 3 straight years since Shaquille O'Neal did it. Obviously, Shaq was there with the Lakers and won the NBA Finals MVP 3 years in a row. So when you just look at the Chiefs as a whole, and we'll get into it later on, but these moments here, they're always special. Listen, if you go to NFLshop.com or the Chiefs Pro Shop, they have apparel that you will never see before. So if you see something you like, the late Therese Paylor said this, if there's anything that catches your eye, get it, because they're not making any more. By the way, the show out gear, the opening night gear, they come up with a different name for it every year. They used to call it the show out gear. I always collected those, but I stopped last year. Man, the apparel has gotten so bad with the NFL. Some of it's nice, some of it's just really, really bad. They have a hat where you have the Super Bowl 59 patch on the side, and then for like the main the hat itself, it's a paper airplane. Who the fuck is going to wear that? I mean, listen, I'm not knocking on the NFL shop, all that. I mean, I'm sure a lot of hard work gets put into that, but it's like, what are the what's the thought process of creating apparel like that? I mean, I don't know. Like, who wears a hat with a paper airplane on it, and on the side it says Super Bowl 59? I would have a lot of questions about that kind of apparel, but that's just me. So yeah, I think this is it's a cool moment. If you're at the event, it's cool, but you don't get to hear the interviews. It sounded like Travis Kelce was echoing, so maybe they're playing some of it through the speakers over there at the stadiums. I'm not sure. Yeah, a paper airplane. Like, who's wearing that on their hat? I don't know. But it's a cool event. I love watching it. I love listening to the radio coverage. The whole like Radio Row. I was in the media for a couple of years. The one thing I wish I got to experience, and I don't care which two teams are there, whether it's the Chiefs or not, I would love to experience Radio Row just one day, just to be there. I've heard some people in the media, they get kind of tired of it after a while because they find man, people like me, like I would never find that stuff boring. I would totally bask in the moment every single time. I'm sure it's difficult to try to land interviews because everyone else is trying to get the same people. But that's Radio Row. That's Super Bowl week for you. So, yeah, and I wish this was more prevalent in other sports. I get it's different in the other major sports in America, like baseball, hockey. Hockey doesn't really get a lot of media coverage to begin with, but NBA, those sports, they have a best of 7 series. So it's not a, one game event like it is with the NFL. So it is a much different feel. I get that, but I wish that kind of thing was more common in other sports. Maybe in the UFC, which still kind of picking up with the mainstream media, but that's just kind of the way it is. I'd love to experience it one time. I know they're in general, sports leagues and teams are more susceptible to having podcasters and bloggers at these events. So maybe I go to these one day. Oh, who knows? Not anything that I think is necessary for me personally, as far as content podcast wise, but something I would like to experience one day. As far as some comments here, Samuel actually has a question here. Do you think this is it for Andy Reid and Travis Kelce if they three-peat? So both Travis Kelce was asked about this. Andy Reid might have been asked about this, but I know Clark Hunt did. Clark Hunt did speak to the media today, and he says he knows for a fact, his words, that that Andy Reid's coming back. So it sounds like regardless of the outcome, Andy Reid's staying in Kansas City. He signed a 5-year deal, which doesn't necessarily mean everything. He can always, retire a little earlier before the contract ends. I think because of the and I can say this with certainty. I do know that the Hunt family and the Reid family, those two families have a very, very, very close relationship. If Andy Reid ever felt like he was going to step away, he realizes that the Chiefs playing into February every year is a massive disadvantage when it comes to the head coaching search. So if Andy Reid would ever, if he was certain that he would retire, I think he would give Clark Hunt ample time. Because when you have Patrick Mahomes, Brett Veach, all these players, great players on the team, you certainly don't want to waste a single year. And you want to make sure you find the right head coaching candidate. Maybe the Chiefs just go within and hire someone. I don't know, but who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, which definitely is not going to be this offseason. That is for sure. So Andy Reid is expected to come back. Travis Kelce was asked also about how much playing time he's got left in him. He says he's got a lot left, but then he likes to take it one step at a time. He also did, admit that he's got other opportunities out there. Yeah, absolutely he does. The Hollywood industry, which Travis Kelce's already got a big foot in the door in that industry, doing these commercials, was part of the Grotesserie TV show. I think he was hosting Are You Smarter Than an Eighth Grader or whatever show on Prime. So he's already been doing a lot in the offseason alone that aired during the football season. So he's been keeping busy in the entertainment industry for sure. And by the way, for people who are like, oh, his girlfriend's a multi-billionaire. Okay. Does her bank account belong to him? I don't know how that stuff works with celebrities and their relationships. I'm sure Taylor has maybe helped out with private jet accommodations here and there. But ultimately, I don't think her bank account belongs to him. That's just my thought. But listen, Travis Kelce, he said many times he's got a lot left in him. He's still playing at a very high level. Look at the amount of receptions and receiving yards this year. Name 5 tight ends that had more than Kelce in those two categories. You can't. So I know a lot of people love to point out Travis Kelce's age and all of that stuff. Okay. So you want to call Kelsey old, but he's still playing better than a lot of the tight ends out there. He's not the monster Kelsey he once was, but what about just recently? I know he had a quiet AFC championship game, which is fine because Xavier Worthy stepped up and had a pretty significant game, more than 100 total yards. Thanks, Buffalo. But the game before that, he had 117 yards against a defense that ranks in the top 5 in a lot of categories: sacks, takeaways, total defense, third down defense. And Travis Kelce just ate in that game. Travis Kelce had 117 yards in that playoff game against the Texans, the most all season. So for a guy who's old and washed up and is distracted, allegedly, with his relationship, he just had the best game of the season. He had it in the playoffs against the Texans. So people who want to mention Kelce and how he's not as good as he once was, Houston clearly missed out on that narrative for sure. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Dogs just barking. They always have to do it during a podcast. No, it doesn't happen often, but I swear, like my neighborhood, when I first moved here several years ago, it's like it was fairly quiet. You normally would not hear these things. And then I don't know what happened just a couple of years ago. You just heard dogs barking. Like, those movies where they show like a dark, bad neighborhood in the middle of the night, and they just every other house has a dog barking. That's kind of what this has kind of turned into the last couple of years. I mean, it doesn't happen every single night, but just kind of weird when it does happen. So, yeah, that's out there. That's what you guys can hear. Appreciate you, Chris. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. As far as other highlights from Super Bowl media night, nothing really too much. I'm sure there's other stuff that I didn't catch. I did want to start the podcast while some of that was still going on. I think they already wrapped up now. But we'll get into some other comments later on. Like I said, we're doing a podcast tomorrow night, so we can definitely touch on more of that stuff tomorrow and later on in the week. And of course, they're going to be doing press conferences more frequently than they usually do. So we'll definitely react to some of that as the week goes on here. All right. Roger Goodell spoke to the media today. Oh, by the way, Travis Kelce, we have kid reporters who go to these things also. Travis Kelce was asked by a kid reporter that if Travis was a member of the media, what question would he ask? And his question was, why do you all lean into the ref thing so much? It's actually a valid question. So Roger Goodell was asked today about the whole conspiracy theory about the refs in Chiefs games. Obviously, he's aware it exists. Clark Hunt was asked about it today on the Rich Eisen show. It's funny, by the way, the member of the media who was asking Roger Goodell about the ref thing, he's basically saying what the conspiracy theory is, and then he's quick to say, oh, this is not my theory. This is not my theory, Roger. This is just what's out there. Okay, calm down, buddy. You don't need to defend yourself so hard there, because I'm sure that reporter has done that too, because a lot of people in the media have. Roger Goodell just kind of took a dump on the question, which I thought was hilarious, called it a ridiculous theory, and even compared it to about 10, 15 years ago when people accused Roger Goodell of creating a script for the NFL. So he mentioned that as a comparison, which I thought was hilarious. So he kind of just had fun with it and poked fun back at the media with that question. And then later on, they were asking about, the spot of the first down in that Bills game. And I guess, there have been some talks recently, some rumors out there that the NFL is considering digitally determining a first down, which is interesting. I think there are some other things that should be considered by now. Like you should be able to replay whether a penalty was thrown incorrectly or whether there was a missed call there. That should definitely be reviewable, but it's not, oddly enough. I've been saying that for a long time. But here's what I find funny. The Chiefs, they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game in overtime, and the Chiefs didn't get the ball in overtime. The Chiefs, shortly after that, proposed a rule change for both teams to possess the ball in overtime, which, by the way, I disagreed with at the time. I said many times the Chiefs did not lose that game because they lost the coin toss. I've said that many times. They lost because D Ford was offside. The Chiefs' offense was shut out in the first half. Tyreek Hill running backwards on a punt return, and then a player committing a penalty pushed him back even further. That forced a quick 3-and-out, and the Patriots got the ball back in great field position, got a field goal out of that, so they were essentially gifted some points there. The Chiefs were 13 of 19 on third downs allowed. I mean, there were a lot of factors that played into the Chiefs losing that game. Was there a missed pass interference call? Yeah, absolutely. Those things happen, unfortunately. And I said, I just didn't agree with the idea that the Chiefs were going about their loss this way. Fast forward a couple of years later, the Chiefs win in overtime against the Buffalo Bills, who decided to basically give the Chiefs an opportunity with 13 seconds left to go in the game. And the Chiefs win the overtime coin toss. Guess what? Suddenly, it's the Chiefs who are benefiting from the coin toss. That is all of a sudden when people wanted to see a rule change. Oh, wait, what's that? The NFL is now considering digitally determining a first down after another Chiefs-Bills playoff game? Oh, interesting. So it seems like whenever the Chiefs win games and they benefit off something, that's when people really want a rule change. And the NFL even considers a rule change. So who is the NFL really rigging this for? Are they really rigging it for Kansas City? And by the way, yesterday morning, I put out a reel on all of my social media. I said, if you truly believe that the NFL is rigged, I want you to post a screenshot. And I know a lot of you guys do online betting. I want you all to post a screenshot of you putting massive amounts of money on the money line. And by the way, for all you people who are like, oh, the spread, shut up. I'm not talking about the spread. I'm talking about the money line. And by the way, for other people who are like, oh, well, the Chiefs are favored to win, so you don't win much. Okay. See, you guys are making excuses now. Just put more money. If the game is rigged, and for people who are like, oh, I don't gamble. It's not really gambling if it's rigged. There's a difference between gambling and knowing the outcome. If you know the outcome because it's supposedly rigged, well, then put a shit ton of money on the money line and let's see you all win a bunch of money. Not a single person put a screenshot of that. I challenged everyone to do so who thinks that the game is rigged. Not one person did it. Why? So someone in the comments, tell me why I didn't get any comments from people. Oh, I'll answer it for you guys. It's because they don't believe what they're saying. See, if I was really convinced that the NFL was rigged for one team or that the NBA was rigged for one team, I'd be placing a shit ton of money on the money line every single time. I mean, come on. We'd all be able to retire. Any debt you have that you got to pay off, you'd be able to pay it off in no time. I mean, we could all buy Bitcoin at this rate. And Bitcoin is at an all-time high. So all these people who want to say the game is rigged, why isn't anyone getting rich off the Chiefs money line in these games? Because if that was the case, we'd all be rich right now. We'd all be rich, but no, nobody wants to put the money line on the Chiefs, even though they think it's rigged. Suddenly, they don't want to put a lot of money on the Chiefs money line. That's odd. That is very odd. Let's talk about the Chiefs, what they must do in the upcoming game in all three facets here. And I'm not going to go into a deep breakdown. We'll do that later in the week. Let's start with the Chiefs offense. What must the Chiefs offense do in this one here? Got to protect Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the number one key in this one here. Protect Patrick Mahomes. A bit of a struggle doing that in the postseason with Joe Thuney at left tackle and Mike Caliendo at left guard. But I think you got to utilize the running game more. This is going to be one of those situations where you need to wear out the opposing defense. And I think you do that by running the ball. And you got to utilize all of your players in this one here. I'm not saying everyone needs to get 100 yards. That's not possible. That's not realistic. But utilize Travis Kelce more. Utilize DeAndre Hopkins more. They were both pretty quiet in the AFC Championship game. I know Xavier Worthy had a great game, but I think you're going to need a lot more than Xavier Worthy for sure. Against a very, very good Eagles defense. They've got a couple of All-Pros there. Zach Bond having a hell of a season. You got Slay on that defense. Several more guys, which we'll get into later on in the week. But they've got a lot of great players on that defense for sure. And I think if you're the Chiefs, offensively, you have the tools to get past their defense. And I was rewatching Super Bowl 57 this morning. And, the Chiefs were down by 10 at halftime. Mahomes re-aggravated that ankle injury. And then what happened in the second half? The Chiefs scored on every single possession in the second half. Could have easily scored a touchdown if they wanted to. The Eagles were actually letting Jerick McKinnon score. They wanted him to score so they could have some time on the clock. But the Chiefs, of course, the name of the game is work smart, not hard. And Jerick McKinnon slid right at the 2-yard line. And the Chiefs just ate up all the clock, and they let Harrison Butker go in there and kick the game-winning field goal. So I think if you're the Chiefs, you got to utilize all the players you have on offense. Juju Smith-Schuster got involved last week for a big game. You had Hollywood Brown getting much more involved in this one with a couple of catches. Hopkins, only one catch, but was a big catch. It was a first down there. So you got to use those guys more. And once you wear out that defense, I think that's when you can let Kareem Hunt take over in the second half, which he's been doing a lot of in games recently. So a Kareem Hunt second half takeover would be huge. And I think, having this core unit with the experience, I think that certainly helps. Doesn't guarantee you a win, of course. The Patriots have had the experience, but they did not win every single Super Bowl. They lost 3 of them, in fact. But I think having the experience help. And the guys who have never been to a Super Bowl, guys like Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, those guys have been around a very long time, and they know what's expected, what to do in those situations there. So I'm excited to see how that all comes together in this game here. Of course, you got a lot of guys motivated to pull off the three-peat. Some of these guys were not here all 3 years. There are some guys who have never won a Super Bowl before, and guys I mentioned like Hunt, Hopkins, and Kareem, and a couple others. They're extra motivated to get their first Super Bowl win for sure. So it's going to be a lot of fun just to see what this Chiefs team will do offensively. The one other thing I will say, because I know a lot of people want to know, how do you stop Saquon Barkley? And I'll get into that defensively, but I think, oddly enough, Patrick Mahomes is going to be the key, one of the keys to stopping Saquon Barkley. And it sounds weird because Patrick doesn't play defense. He plays offense. Here's what I mean by that. If you're the Chiefs, this is one of those games where you need to score a lot. Obviously, they surpassed more than 30 points in a game for the first time just last week in the AFC title game, the biggest game of the year up to date at the time. So we know the Chiefs are capable of doing that because it was a big deal during the season. Oh, the Chiefs, they can't score 30 points. But they did that in the AFC Championship game against the Buffalo Bills of all teams. The team that people thought, oh, this is for sure their year, finally. Nope, not really the case. So if you're the Chiefs offense, you got to help out your defense in this one and stopping Saquon Barkley, because you've got to go out there and score a lot, score frequently, and not put the Eagles in position where they have to play catch up. If you create any kind of situation where it's a 2-possession game, the Eagles, I don't think are going to abandon the run if it's a 14-point game. But if it turns into a 3-score game, that's where things could become a problem for the Eagles. And if you look at the Eagles, they're number 1 in the NFL in rushing attempts per game. They're 32nd, dead last in pass attempts per game. Jalen Hurts is having an Alex Smith type of season. The only big difference is he's doing a lot more on the ground, especially with the tush push there, which the Chiefs had some success against that last week against Josh Allen and the Bills, doing so on the 2-point conversion, shutting them down there. And also on another instance on that 4th down play there, which, you just look at the play, it was correctly called. They reviewed it. So people who think it's controversial, it's really not. You just need a pair of eyes and realize that the ball never crosses the 1st down marker. Josh Allen's body does. The helmet does. Part of his back does. The ball never passes the first down marker. I mean, it's right there. It's right there for your eyes to see. As far as what must the Chiefs defense do, we kind of talked about it a little bit already, getting a little bit of help from Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. But I think when you look at the Chiefs, here's one thing, and I know the Eagles pointed this out today, so they're aware of this. Nick Sirianni has already prepped them on this and gave them this factoid here. And I've been telling you guys this for several weeks. The Chiefs have not allowed a 100-yard rusher all year except for Lamar Jackson. Lamar's been the only guy to rush for 100 yards on the Chiefs, and that was the very first game of the NFL season. I've been saying for a long time, I want the Chiefs to play the Eagles in the Super Bowl because I really want to see how the Chiefs' run defense matches up against the Eagles' rushing attack with Saquon Barkley. And we saw Will Shipley in the fourth quarter last week. He did a really good job. I needed 7 yards from Saquon Barkley. Didn't get it. They let Shipley take over, and he went off 4 carries. He had a touchdown, and I think 70 or 80 some yards. So Shipley's a guy who can definitely contribute as well if they want to use him a little bit more. Not saying they're going to move away totally from Barkley. I mean, obviously they're going to run a lot with him, but he's going to need a breather in this one. And it wouldn't surprise me if they would continue to rush the rushing attack, especially if it's going very well with Shipley. And I'm sure Barkley will have a good first half, and I would expect the Chiefs defense to start making some adjustments. And I think that's where the Chiefs would pull away. And by the way, the Chiefs offense, they have not done a very good job in games coming out of the locker room at halftime. So I really want to see the Chiefs play better in the second half, because that's something that they have struggled with in games this year, trying to come out of the locker room and open up the second half with a big score. That's what I would like to see. I think, kind of similar to what we've seen against the run a lot. I think the defensive line needs to play well. They've got some great players on that offensive line there. Their center and their right guard, not necessarily bad, but those are more of their weak points there. So, they're going to run it to the left a lot, especially with some elite offensive linemen at the left tackle and the left guard spots for the Eagles offensive line there. So that's something where the Chiefs need to be ready for. The linebackers are going to need to have a big game in this one here. Nick Bolton, he's played well against the run. Leo Chenal has been a monster this year, both applying pressure and going out there and stopping the run. Drew Tranquil's been good at that as well. And I know the safeties have done a really good job closing in on ball carriers. So this is going to be one of those games where you've got to make sure every single defensive player is doing their job. Everyone knows their role in every situation, every snap. So that's something to keep in mind in this one here. Special teams. Harrison Butker has never missed a field goal in the postseason in the fourth quarter. He's 11 of 11 in that category there. And by the way, for people who are like, oh, you jinxed him, folks, I've been pointing this out about Butker for a long, long time. And if you think this football team is not above jinx, if you believe in that crap, then I guess you just don't have confidence in the Chiefs, but neither here nor there. But I think the one secret weapon, and no one's really talking about this guy, and I think this would be kind of pertinent to see. What about Nico Remigio? Nico Remigio has had a couple of big games on special teams recently. The Chiefs need to be ready to use him more on special teams and be able to take some kickoffs back, because I know the Chiefs have not attempted a lot of kick returns, but I think this would be a time to do so. He had that 63-yard return against Houston to open up the game. Unfortunately, the Chiefs could not capitalize and get a touchdown out of it, but they did get a field goal to start off there. And then the Chiefs got a 6-play drive that turned into a touchdown, and that was thanks to the punt there from the Bills. Nico Remigio went 41 yards on that play, and that helped the Chiefs quickly get a touchdown drive out of that. I haven't really thought much of Nico Remigio. I know in the offseason, Andy Reid and Dave Toub, the special teams coordinator, they had a lot of great things to say about Nico Remigio. And we haven't seen much of it in the regular season. He's had flashes in preseason games, Ball security has been a bit of a problem there, and I think that's why he hasn't been getting as much playing time. But they're looking at Nico Remigio right now, and they're saying that this is a guy that is going to be someone they need on special teams. I'd be very interested in seeing if Nico Remigio is the primary returner next season. Obviously, got some business to take care of way before that, but I think the Chiefs have found a little bit of a secret weapon here on special teams. Maybe offensively, he could come through one day. I think the offensive core right now, especially with the wide receivers, a little crowded. And again, we'll see long-term future what the Chiefs do with their wide receivers, who they bring back. It's certainly going to be a big topic in the offseason after the Super Bowl. But I'm looking at this Chiefs team right now, and Nico Remigio could have a special impact in this one here. Let's not forget, 2 years ago against the Eagles, it was Kadarius Toney who had that massive punt return, the longest punt return in Super Bowl history, which, by the way, I was mentioning earlier, I went and rewatched the game and I forgot to finish my thought on that. Who did the Chiefs have at wide receiver at the time? They had Juju Smith-Schuster, they had Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. Those were your wide receivers. And both Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney scored on the corn dog play against the Eagles. Juju was brought back to the Chiefs, but he's a member. He's more of a depth player now. But when you look at the personnel at the wide receiver position, it's far better than what the Chiefs had 2 years ago. DeAndre Hopkins is a seasoned vet. You have a guy like Hollywood Brown who's been around for a while. You have Xavier Worthy, who's one of the better offensive rookies this season in the NFL. So this Chiefs wide receiver room, certainly better than it's been in years past. So I'm excited to see what this Chiefs team does offensively. I forgot to mention that. But, looking at special teams, obviously Dave Toub cooked something up with Kadarius Toney in that game. Could we maybe see Nico Remigio have a really huge Super Bowl on special teams? Keep that in mind. Before we get out of here, I do want to address some of the rumors that have come out, reports about trade players that could be traded soon. The first one, Myles Garrett, he put this publicly, demanding a trade from the Cleveland Browns. By the way, WWE, they have what they call faces, who are the good guys, and heels, who are the bad guys. And Kofi Kingston, who's a heel. WWE is in Cleveland today, if I'm not mistaken. And Kofi Kingston, he's getting booed by the Cleveland crowd. And he said, oh, yeah, we can't wait to get out of Cleveland, just like Myles Garrett. And everyone booed the hell out of him, which I thought was hilarious. But Myles Garrett, demanding a trade, put out a statement publicly. The Browns responded and said they have no interest in trading Myles Garrett. Okay, you say that now, but if someone's willing to give you the right offer, I mean, I don't think they can say no. And by the way, if you want to know who I think could target him, even though they've got a really good group of edge rushers, I would not be shocked if it's the Denver Broncos that put their name in the hat for Myles Garrett. They've got a lot of money to spend, and I think their defense, which led the NFL in sacks, could be even better if they get Myles Garrett. So I would not be surprised if the Denver Broncos reached out and tried to do something to get Myles Garrett. I mean, anything to try to surpass Mahomes. Because listen, this is going to be a very tough division now. I mean, Andy Reid, Clark Hunt said, is coming back. So you have Andy Reid, you have Sean Payton, you have Jim Harbaugh, you have now the new head coach of the Raiders, Pete Carroll. So many championships, college and in the NFL, between those four coaches there. A lot of respect with those four coaches. So don't be shocked if you see that. David says the Lions. Bob says the Raiders. Yeah, certainly teams to keep it. Yeah, the Lions. I mean, anything to try to improve their defensive depth after what they went through, I would not be shocked. I'm not familiar with their cap situation, but I'm sure they'll figure it out if they really want a guy like Myles Garrett. Another player, this one came out a couple of hours ago. There's a report that the LA Rams are looking to shop Cooper Kupp. That's a shocker there. I mean, you look at Cooper Kupp, who was the Super Bowl MVP just a couple of years ago for the Rams when they beat the Bengals. And you're looking to shop your Super Bowl MVP, your 31-year-old Super Bowl MVP. I mean, 31's not young, but it's not old either. Not terribly old, at least. I don't know, man. I think that's a mistake. I'm not sure if, what do you get out of this? Because you've got a really good offense right now with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Demarcus Robinson. I don't know, man. I mean, are they looking at teams like the Chiefs and the Packers who traded their star wide receivers, referring to Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, and they're like, oh, maybe we should do that? I mean, I don't think every situation is going to be the same one here. It's not Kupp, by the way, who's demanding to leave. He wants to stay there. That's a very odd one for me. NFL Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-Pro, same year. I know he's dealt with a lot of injuries. I get that. But I don't know, man. Yeah, some of you guys are mentioning he's going to cost a lot of money. Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I just don't know if you trade a player like that. Now, I said the same thing about Tyreek Hill. Though when it happened, I also said the Chiefs would be fine. But the Rams need help, though, especially on defense. You need all the offensive firepower, unless you have a great solution for your defense. I'm not sure. That's a very odd one there. Robert's asking, do I think Hopkins retires? Hopkins is 32, is he not? I believe he's 32 years old. Yeah, he turns 33 in June. I don't think he's ready to hang it up yet. Especially if you're going to play under Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. Now he's going to be a free agent. I think the better question is, what does he do in the offseason? Maybe retirement's on the table. I guess we can't dismiss that completely. But listen, he went to Tennessee before. I get why. The Chiefs were in a bind with the salary cap. They couldn't afford to sign him, and he had to, join a team so he could go through training camp. But what do you do? The Chiefs have to figure out what they've got to do with Juwan Taylor's contract. That's for sure. Yeah, I want to see Hollywood back too. And I think Hollywood, given that, he didn't do much statistically, obviously was injured for a majority of the season. I don't think he's in position to demand a lot of money. I think he'll come back. I really do. And if Hopkins decides, hey, look, I'll stay here in Kansas City so I can finish out my career with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I think that honestly might encourage Travis Kelce to come back for one last season. Because if you're Travis Kelce and you're teammates with Hopkins, Hollywood, Worthy, and Rice, that could really help everybody out. Because you can't double team everyone. Someone's going to get open. We'll see what they do with Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, there's a lot of things they got to consider. So hopefully they pull off this is why I'm saying hopefully they pull off the three-peat. Because if they do, maybe some of these fan favorites, even guys who have been here for a short time, like Hopkins, like Hollywood, like Hunt in his second stint, could be their last one. I don't want to say it is, and I hope it isn't. But you just never know. Patrick Mahomes said it today in his press conference at the podium on media night. You never know when this could be your last one. And as far as this unit here, yeah, Kyle, he does have a suspension. You're right, but the way I see it is that gives him more time to recover from his injury. And not that I think he needs all of that extra time, because it happened in week 4. Yeah, week 4. He'll have a little bit more time to recover, and then when he comes back mid-season or whenever, he's going to provide a nice little boost for that offense. So that suspension, he needs to suffer the consequences for it, for sure, for what he did. But in a football sense, that suspension can kind of help you because he'll just come back mid-season, fresh, ready to go. And that's a fresh body there for your offense. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, there's a case, and people keep asking, when are we going to find out? It won't be, I don't think his court date is until the summer, so we won't know until June, maybe even July. This is going to take a long time. But that's just the way things work here because of the case. If it wasn't for the case, I think the NFL would have already given a suspension by now because everything is on camera. But yeah, that's as far as we know with that situation there. All right, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. Appreciate all of you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Hey, real quickly, I can go ahead and announce this because I have gotten confirmation. This is all good to go. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time, we are going to have former Chiefs wide receiver Garrett Dieter on the podcast tomorrow. Obviously, Dieter has a very close relationship with Patrick Mahomes. Still in the community, very active in the community as well. And he knows a lot of those players who are getting ready to play in yet another Super Bowl. So Garrett Dieter, former Chiefs wide receiver, will join me on the podcast tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central Time. Put your timers. Make sure you got the notification turned on. That way you guys know when to expect the podcast with Garrett Dieter, former Chiefs wide receiver, will join me tomorrow night. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode tonight. We are 6 days away from Super Bowl 59. We've got a lot coming your way this week. I'll talk to you all tomorrow night. Peace out. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night.